Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, episode 5 is here. I am excited to be here. I know you're excited to be here. How's your week been?
It's been good, busy at work. I'm glad we're doing this. It's a good getaway. And 5 episodes down, man. Heck yeah, let's do this.
Let's do this. Let's get right into it. We're going to go right into our news and notes. Nothing going on this week, right? No, it's been a crazy Bengal week this week. We have so much to talk about. OTAs, Joe Burrow, right? He had his big press conference. Let's get right into it because we do have a lot to talk about. But I want to go right into Mr. Joe Burrow's press conference. Mon, this guy is just so impressive to me. It's unreal. And, for a coach, for a guy who has coached quarterbacks and loves that position, loves to watch that position, this guy is he's just different, right? He's just different. You hear the NFL guys talking about it. You hear the coaches talking about it. You hear the opponents talking about it. But he's a different guy. And I think the biggest thing from his press conference, something that is just unbelievable to me, is that last play, right? The one that will just live in infamy. We'll think about it forever as Bengal fans. And that's that 4th down and 1, the one where Mr. Ramsey gets juked out of his shoes. And we see Jamar Chase open, but obviously Joe did not have enough time to get rid of it. And Joe made sure everyone knew that he checked to a go route on that play. On 4th down and 1, Super Bowl in the balance. I don't know if there is another quarterback in the NFL that would do something like that. Maybe Tom Brady, maybe. But to check on 4th and 1 to a go route against a corner. Now, again, they had Jalen Ramsey's ticket all day, right? Joe Burrow threw all over that guy all day. But he's considerably one of the elite corners in the NFL. And you see your guy out there one-on-one press coverage, and Joe Burrow checks to a go route with the Super Bowl in the balance. Man, there is no other guy in the NFL that I want quarterbacking our Cincinnati Bengals.
The kahunas on that guy are unbelievable. Yeah, that press conference was something else. And when he said that, it did reopen the wound. That was tough. That could have been a unbelievable walk-off touchdown to win the Super Bowl. And you hit it right on the head. For him to call that play on 4th and 1, man, this guy is something else. Listening to him, the moxie, the leadership that he has, I think it's, everybody compared it to Boomer. I think he has more leadership qualities than Boomer, and that's saying something because Boomer was an amazing leader. I said something a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again. We are entering a golden age of Bengal football, and it's because of Joe Burrow. What he said in that press conference, losing is not an option. This man is the ultimate leader for this team. He makes everybody better. And all I got to say is AFC, look out. We're going to be relevant. We're going to be playing for championships for years.
I agree completely. Let's talk about a couple other things too. I think that are very impressive, right? Because as Bengal fans, it's very hard for us to move on from the Super Bowl, right? We're still thinking about it. But as a coach and as a player, you have to be able to move on. But it's a lot easier said than done. And Joe Burrow said in his press conference, hey, I moved on the next day. I watched the film. I'm going to correct the mistakes, and we're going to move on. Again, just more of that leadership quality that you talked about. Listen, this guy knows he's going to be playing for many more Super Bowls in the next 15 years. So he understands, hey, we got to get better. We got to fix what we did wrong. But at the same time, now he talked about it. Hey, we know what it takes now. We know we were just kind of playing. We were just kind of going out there and playing. And again, they were, right? Just a group of young guys going out having fun, just playing the game they love. And, it took them all the way to the Super Bowl. But now they understand what it's going to take to get back there. And again, I've said it before on this pod. This guy, and you said it too, this is the golden age. This guy is going to be playing for many championships for years to come. So that's exciting. Again, something else that he said that I love is they said, hey, is that momentum going to carry you into next season? And Joe said, listen, hey, the momentum, yes, it might carry us a little bit, but the culture that we have built in that locker room and in this team, what Coach Taylor has done, that is what's going to really carry over to next year. And again, I think that is a big part of what we are talking about when we talk about the culture, the leadership, how much different this football team is than what we've seen here in the past.
You're absolutely right. He's the leader of the team. Yeah, look at how the Bengals are drafting. They're drafting team captains, leaders from other teams. It's a roster full of leaders, and that's going to lead the championships.
And the last thing I'll say too, and this is something, again, because as a Bengal fan, you see how good Joe Burrow is,
Yeah.
and you don't think about these little things, right? What he had to overcome, the injury, Maan, I didn't even realize this. And again, it's crazy because you and I are just obsessed with our Bengals. This is something I didn't even think about, but this is his first offseason, Maan.
Yeah.
The guy hasn't even had a full offseason yet.
Yeah.
And he's already been in the Super Bowl in his second year. It's just insane to think what this guy is truly capable. But let's get to the preseason schedule was released this week as well. Let's go over it real quick. August 12th is Friday. That is at home against the Arizona Cardinals, right? A.J. Green comes back to Cincinnati. Not really sure he's going to be playing in that game along with a lot of our Bengal starters. But that game is at 7:30 p.m. On August 21st, that is a Sunday, we are at the New York Giants. That game is at 7 p.m. And then August 27th, on a Saturday at 7 p.m., the Los Angeles Rams come to town. And that's something we talked about last week. You had said, you had mentioned it on the pod, that they're going to do some joint practices. And Coach Taylor talked about that this week as well, how they're excited about being able to go out and compete at practice. Because, again, a lot of those starters and stuff, they're not going to get a lot of reps in the preseason.
No. Yeah, the Bengals normally don't do that very often. They did it a few times with Marvin Lewis. I think this is the first time with Coach Taylor. Hey, I welcome it. I love it. They're going against the team that beat them in the Super Bowl champs. It'll be good one-on-one drills. I don't expect, it's going to be safe. He trusts Zach, the coach for the Rams. They're not going to do anything silly to hurt their stars. So I think it's going to be good for both teams, and I welcome it. I wish the Bengals would do it every year.
Yeah, he kind of talked about how Zach knows Sean McVay.
Right.
They know each other's system. They know each other really well. They know how each other coach. They know how each other carries on and runs practice. So
Right.
Coach Taylor did say he's not very concerned with that. Something I want to say real quick too, something very cool, is I want to give a shout out to my man, the wide receivers coach for the Cincinnati Bengals, Troy Walters. I got to meet Coach Walters down here in Florida when he coached at UCF. He was out recruiting some of my kids. Absolutely great guy. I am so excited to say that Coach Walters and one of our scouts, Trey Brown, they were chosen by the Bengals to go out and represent the Bengals in the NFL's inaugural accelerator program. So that is very exciting. Again, I want to give a big shout out to Coach Walters. Like I said, he's such a great guy, and hopefully one day we'll be able to have him on our pod. But shout out to you, Coach Walters and Trey Brown, for that.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yes, that is an awesome thing for those guys to be able to go out and do that. So, okay, so let's get to OTAs, right? Because we've had OTAs as well going on this week. It's been awesome seeing the guys out running around. A couple things. We have obviously no Jesse Bates once again. with his contract situation. Not sure we're going to see Jesse anytime soon, but two of our favorites, Paul Daner and Jay Morrison, talked about this week that there's a very good chance that they see Jesse Bates signing that $13 million tag, and I see the same thing. I find it hard to believe that Jesse Bates is not going to sign for $13 million this year. I just can't see that happening, but you never know. I think the one thing that they did talk about with the OTAs is Daxon Hill, that guy that we talked about, that first round pick. He slid right into that safety position, and they said they didn't miss a beat. Now, obviously, we still want Jesse back, but I think the Bengals have a plan just in case this thing doesn't go their way.
Yeah, a good turnout for the OTA. Only two people not there, obviously Bates and Hendrickson, but that's, awesome that all the other guys are there. The Bates thing, it really, I'm a big Bates fan. I hope they find a way to sign him. Yeah, you draft a guy, you develop him, you're supposed to keep him. I get it. His agent does play hardball. He probably wants, top tier or top safety money. Hopefully they can find a way to make it work, because I think the Bengals are a better team when he's on that roster.
Agreed.
I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I submitted it to Hobson's Choice. Jesse Bates is a team leader, and you hear Mike Hilton, you hear all these other guys talk about him, and team chemistry was huge last year, and I just don't want that disrupted, because we are going to be the hunted this year. Everybody's going to be coming after us.
No doubt.
I think
we said last week.
Yeah, that team chemistry is key, and and he's a great football player, and he's a great team leader. We need to keep him on this roster, and I hope they find a way before July 15th.
I agree. And you said really quick about Trey Hendrickson not being there. He kind of talked about, hey, he's got his own routine. He's got his own workout routine. Right. Again, this is just the beginning of OTAs. I don't think that's a big deal at all. We all know what we have in Trey Hendrickson. He will be there when he needs to be there, right? Yeah. But really, that, and again, some of those Bengal guys talked about it. That's so impressive. Only two guys not being there for just voluntary OTAs. Right. I think that was one thing that we heard as well from a couple different people this week is this team loves being around each other. Those guys love being in the locker room together. They're very good friends. They're very close. Yeah. They enjoy going out and practicing. I mean, that's really, when you talk about team chemistry, that's very hard to find, right? You don't see that a lot in professional sports. You see a lot of egos. This Bengals team is different. And again, we talked about it, that run to the Super Bowl this past year. A lot of that was built on team chemistry, right? And obviously talent as well, but absolutely, definitely some team chemistry. But we also, Maan, we signed 5 of our 6 rookies, right? Mr. Volson is the only one that has not signed yet. I'm sure that's going to be coming soon. A couple other real quick notes is Alex Kappa. Alex Kappa has a core injury, a core muscle injury. Coach Taylor says probably about 2 weeks, but he will be back. I know you're Mr. Doomsday, so you're probably nervous about that. But Maan, I can tell you, do not be nervous about a core muscle injury. Oh boy! And the good news is that our 3 guys who got work done on them this offseason, it looks like they're going to be back for training camp. And Joseph Asai, obviously losing Joseph Asai in the preseason was really tough. He looked great in that first game. We all were like, oh my goodness, we got this incredible edge rusher now to go along with Trey and Sam. So it's good that he's going to be back. And then T. Higgins and Logan Wilson got a little work done again in the offseason. It looks like they're going to be back as well.
Yeah, I was a little concerned about the Kappa injury. Hopefully it is only 2 weeks. I just had a flashback to Rich Bram having a 2-week bone bruise that turned into a career ender.
We talked about that, and
right, I know I know
yeah.
it's not going to listen. 2 weeks, hopefully it's minor, and it is. Listen, it's if you're going to get nicked up now. If it's something,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 weeks, let's not have that done in September. You know what, Osai, you're right. What a game against Tampa last year. He really flashed. Hopefully, he picks up where he left off because, we could use 6, 7 sacks from him this year. And it's good to get those guys, get him back. And maybe who's a 7th round pick last year, Hubert, too. See what he can do. And
Wyatt. Yeah. I think too, you kind of look how the Bengals attacked the draft in the offseason, right? Only one edge rusher in the 7th round. I think they feel very good about Joseph Asai and Wyatt as well, coming back from his injury. The last thing I'm going to talk about real quick, and then we'll get to the meat of what we're going to talk about today, and that is Jackson Carman talking today or yesterday, to the media about how he is very, he's very locked in right now. He is excited about fighting for one of those positions, so much so that he has gone on this new diet that involves cauliflower pizza. Mon, cauliflower pizza. Would you ever eat cauliflower pizza?
I've actually had it, and it's very good.
Oh no,
it's good stuff. No. It's good for you. Look at me.
Oh no.
You know what?
Go ahead. I'm not sure I could do cauliflower pizza.
It's not bad. It's pretty good, actually. No, I'm excited for Jackson Carman. I hope he does. I hope he comes in dialed in, and in shape, because, Twitter can be a tough place. And, I was down on him. Other people are down on him. I want this guy to succeed, and he could very easly be our starter and be a good player for us this year.
Agreed. Competition breeds competition. I mean, the more guys we have out there competing at a high level, the better off this football team is going to be. And especially on the offensive line where we need it the most, right? So let's get to that. That's a great lead into what we're going to talk about today. And that is, Mon, something you and we do every year around this time, and that is break down the offensive and defensive positional groups for the Bengals, because right now, Mon, we're pretty much the hay is in the barn, right? I mean, we might add a guy here and there, but right now we are looking at this roster filling itself out. Again, we might see a free agent here and there. The draft is over. The meat of free agency is over. We've signed pretty much who we're going to sign. Hopefully Jesse Bates by July 15th. Extending him. But besides that is where we are right now. So tonight we are going to talk about the offensive positional groups. We're going to go through each position group. That's quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and the offensive line. We're going to go through and talk about it a little bit, and then you and I are both going to grade each positional group. And I'm very curious to see where you have your grades, because, Mon, you are a tough grader. So let's get right now to it. The offensive positional groups. Again, before we talk about these offensive positional groups, let's dive into the offense as a whole. Okay. So real quick, the one glaring thing that we see, something very, very cool, is that we had a 4,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, 2,000-yard receivers, and almost 3,000-yard receivers, right? We have not seen that in a very long time in Cincinnati. Again, very exciting. And all 4 of those guys, Mon, with Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, all of them 26 years or younger. It's unreal, Mon. It's very exciting. So let's talk about, though, because there are some things offensively that you and I think we could do better. Let's get into the total offensive yards first. We finished with 6,145 total yards, which ranked where, Mon, in the NFL?
13th out of 32.
13th out of 32.
Yes.
Not bad. We will take it, especially with the 5 guys that played in front of Joe Burrow. And again, some of those guys played well in spurts, but there's a lot of moving parts and stuff. So that's really impressive to think about those numbers when you don't have a consistency on the offensive line. One stat that I love being a coach, I love the 4th down conversions. We were 13 out of 20 in 4th down conversions. It seems like, and again, that's the regular season.
Right.
Obviously, in the Super Bowl, we missed on a couple big 4th downs that ended up being the difference in the game. But 13 of 20 4th down conversions. Total rushing yards, Mon, 1,742 total rushing yards. The interesting stat here, and we'll get to the defense in the next couple weeks, but we gave up the same amount of rushing yards that we had, 1,742 rushing yards. Average 5.9 yards a play on offense. And again, that's a very impressive number when you think about, you're talking about almost 6 yards per play on offense. That's pretty impressive. Now, of course, we had some big plays, a lot of chunk plays. So that helps that average, but still pretty impressive. The other one that I really look at, especially at a quarterback position, Joe Burrow. Over 70% completion percentage, Mon.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I did not realize that. That's amazing.
That's amazing. That is so hard to do at any level of football, but especially at the highest level. Over 70% completion percentage. Averaged almost 9 yards per pass attempt. Right. So almost averaging a first down on a pass attempt. Again, crazy numbers. 54 touchdowns total, 36 36 through the air, 16 on the ground, and I think we had a couple defensive scores as well. There's some numbers in there really that jump out that are extremely impressive, but some that aren't, like the 55 sacks we gave up in the regular season.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, we definitely had some eggs during the season in football games. Just looking at the stats, 248 yards against the Bears, 268 against the Steelers the first game. That was a win, though. The Bronco game, we only had 250. The offense struggled in some games. You were talking about Boyd, Higgins, Chase, all of our star players, the skill position players. They are so good. And they did that with, our offensive line was subpar, was poor. And, there's no way to get around that. They really struggled. And, they had a couple of solid games last year, but they did all of that with, like you just said, they gave up 55 sacks. And I think Zach Taylor, I think his playbook and I think his play calling was limited due to his play of his offensive line. I think, he knew he couldn't trust them in some situations. I think he got conservative. I mean, we talked about that. We questioned some play calls. I'm going to stick up for him. I think it was because of that offensive line. Now, what's going to happen this year with Kappa there, with Karras, with Collins, with Volson and all these other younger guys, developing? I think he's going to be more aggressive. Don't get me wrong. He was aggressive in some key spots last year, but I think he's going to open up his playbook. It's going to expand. And these stats you just talked about, the Bengals finished 13th in the NFL. I can see them finishing in the top 5. Only 2 teams averaged over 400 yards a game last year. That's Tampa Bay and Dallas. We averaged 361. I think the Bengals could get there. And,
definitely.
Everybody's talking about, the Bengals are going to regress. I don't think they're going to regress. I think they're going to move forward. And I said it a few minutes ago. I'm going to say it again. Look out, AFC. Look out.
Yeah, and I like what you said, too, about, coach calling conservative in some games. I mean, we could go through and name at least half of the games this year. I go back, I look at the Bears game, a game where he's trying to play to the strength because, again, we could not our offensive line could not hold up in that game. There were a lot of games where you and I watching the game, we're just sitting there shaking our head like you got all these weapons, but again, like you said, it all starts up front, and up front was a mess a lot of weeks this year. And when that's a mess, you sometimes do have to change the way you call plays. And I think we saw that a lot this year. I think we saw that in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Look, Jake, look at this. In the Bears game, we had 4 turnovers and 5 sacks. In the Charger game, we had 4 turnovers and 6 sacks. In the Browns game, 3 turnovers, 5 sacks. In the Bronco game, they sacked us 5 times. We had a few yards in the Browns and Charger game, but a lot of those, we're playing catch up in the fourth quarter. Our offense struggled in those games, and you know what? Those teams had great pass rushers. Yeah. And again, reiterate, we struggled protecting the passer, and it showed, and it limited that playbook. Listen, Zach Taylor, he knew there were some things he just couldn't do because he doesn't want his quarterback hurt again. And I think his playbook was limited because of that play. And hey, the sky's the limit in 2022. I think, what was that? 6,100 yards total offense for the whole year last year.
6,100,
yeah. I could see them getting to 7,000. They can get to 7,000.
Easy.
And that's going to put us over 400 yards again.
So let's talk about these positional groups, and we want you guys to, all of our listeners, make sure you comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about each positional group and grade them as well, just so we can see how everybody feels out there about these positional groups. So let's start with quarterback, Maan. I think this one's pretty easy, right? I'm going to say it, and I know I'm going to sound like a homer. Joe Burrow, to me, right now, is the best quarterback playing in the NFL. You have to show me otherwise. Why argue with me why he's not? This guy, we talked about how different he is. He has all of the skill sets that you want. He's as accurate as a Joe Montana. He's got the same mindset as a Tom Brady. He's got the cerebral thought process, being able to go through progression as a Peyton Manning. This guy, I would find it hard-pressed that if you asked all the GMs in the NFL and all the head coaches in the NFL, I would say Joe Burrow is at the top of a lot of their list. If you went out and said, hey, who would you want to build your football team around right now? Joe Burrow, to me, there are some good quarterbacks. I have a lot of respect for some of those guys. Aaron Rodgers, he's still an elite quarterback. Obviously, a Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson, I have a lot of respect for. Josh Allen, of course. But Joe Burrow, to me, is just different than those guys. He's different. Not only is he talented, but the way he carries himself, his leadership qualities, his mindset, the way he attacks. He is, to me, the best quarterback in the NFL. And again, if you want to argue it, we can argue it, but you're going to have to show me proof. You're going to have to show me how these other guys are not better than Joe Burrow. So for me, at our quarterback position, again, Brandon Allen, he's a backup guy. He comes in, he takes snaps when he needs to. I think he's close with Joe Burrow. He knows the offense. He kind of fits. He knows what Coach Taylor expects from him. So, Brandon Allen, he's a good backup. But when you have the best quarterback in the NFL, Mon, our quarterback position, to me, is an A+. And I don't even think, again, I don't even think it's close to an A. Joe Burrow's the best to me. He's the best in the NFL.
I give it an A+ just for Joe Burrow. Listen, you're right. Elite intangibles, elite leadership. His football IQ is elite. The guy is, I said it earlier in the show, his moxie, his intangibles are through the roof. And he's going to will this team to win. One other thing about Joe, I think that's underrated, people don't talk enough about. He's a very good athlete. And his arm strength, okay, it's not Justin Herbert, it may not be Russell Wilson. He's got solid arm strength. He doesn't have a noodle arm. And I don't think we talk enough about his athleticism and that arm strength. He's
again too,
he's solid.
Again too. Sorry, but
Yeah.
for me, the arm strength thing, that's great. It's great to have a guy that goes out there and has a cannon for an arm, and everybody loves to watch that. But give me a guy who has over a 70% completion percentage.
Oh, I agree.
Give me a guy like a Joe Montana who was one of the most accurate passers that I have ever watched play in the NFL. So give me that over the strong arm thing. Again, the strong arm thing to me. Look at Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson had a solid arm, right? But it wasn't anything like Ken Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. And we'll argue that later.
I agree with you. And I just don't think that we talk enough about that athleticism. I think he was Mr. Basketball, Ohio, for the state of Ohio. The kid is one hell of an athlete. And Brandon Allen, listen, he does know the offense. Can he come in and give us a game if something happens to Burrow? Absolutely. But I've always thought the Bengals could do a little better at the backup spot.
Yeah.
And of course, they got Jake Browning that's on the practice squad. They had him all last year. I could see him back on it again this year. I give him an A+. Give him an A+.
A+. So A+. Wow, I was not expecting you to give anyone an A+. So I'm very excited to see where this is going.
You'll be shocked about one in a little bit.
Running backs. No, I probably won't. Running backs. Here we go. Our man, Joe Mixon, obviously our starting running back, 1,000-yard rusher this year. We have a guy you love in Chris Evans. You and I both feel like he's going to be utilized a lot more in this offense. I actually think he's going to be our number 2 this year, our number 2 back. Samaje Perine, who, again, kind of like a Brandon Allen, right? He's a great special teams guy. He's a good leader. You like to have him on the football team, and made some big plays this year for us. Let's not forget about some of those big runs he had this year. And then Trayvon Williams, and again, another guy that you and I kind of thought maybe would replace Giovanni Bernard, replace those snaps, and never really has. But the running back position, I'm going to give it a B+, and I'm going to give it a B+ because of Joe Mixon. And I'm also going to give it a B+ because the potential, I think, of Chris Evans. But Joe Mixon, again, to me, very a great leader, first of all, right? A great back, can catch the ball out of the backfield. We have seen that guy make some amazing catches over the years. And really, again, he doesn't get all the touches that a lot of these other backs do, right? Our offense is not built that way. It hasn't been since Joe has gotten there. So I think, to me, Joe Mixon is a top 10 back in this league. And I'm glad he's on the Bengals. I give our running back position a B+.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to shock you. I'm going to give it an A+. Joe Mixon. Yeah, Joe Mixon.
That does shock me.
Yeah, Joe Mixon is one of the most underrated players in the NFL.
I agree.
Love him.
I agree.
He got 1,200 yards rushing. He's going to increase that number dramatically. I love Perine. Remember, Perine was the starter at Oklahoma. Mixon played behind him.
What an incredible backfield, man!
I know. Rodney Anderson was on that.
Rodney Anderson, right? A Bengal that
for a year, unfortunately.
We could add the three Oklahoma running backs on our roster. Unfortunately, with the injury, but Rodney Anderson, yeah, you're right, man.
And some people say Rodney Anderson is probably the most talented of the three, but unfortunately had those injuries.
Yeah.
Perine is 5'11", 6 foot, 240 pounds. Listen, if something happened to Mixon, I have no problem putting Perine in. You are right about Evans. I said it a couple podcasts ago. I expect him to have 35, 40 catches this year. He's going to be our X factor. I expect him to have a big year for us. He's going to be a big star. Very happy about him. You mentioned Trayvon Williams. So when he plays, he performs. He could be on the practice squad again. But you know what? I like our running backs. We keep 3, and all three of them are going to contribute and do well for us this year.
Yeah, and I like Travion Williams too. Like I said, I think Travion is good too. He can come in and play special teams too, right? He played some special teams for us as well. I like the 4 backs, but again, like I said, A plus. Wow, I am I am shocked, right? I'm almost speechless. You've given 2 A pluses. I'm telling you, listeners, this is very unheard of. We're in uncharted territory, Bengal fans. All right, here we go. Wide receivers. Again, I mean, our top 3 guys, Maan, to me, they're the best 3, tandem wise in the NFL. You cannot give me another 3 on one team that is better than those 3 guys, right? I mean, you have a guy like Boyd who can play inside, who can play outside. You have a guy like Jamar who can take the top off, and you got a guy like T who can not only take the top off, but can also up top guys, right? Is that jump ball guy. Out of those 3 guys, you have everything that you would want in your starting group of wide receivers, right? So we know how good those 3 are. Again, I think they're the best 3 tandem in the NFL, and I will argue that. Again, if you want to argue, please give me some kind of stats or numbers or something that would show me otherwise, because I'm sure you cannot do it. But let's look after that, because you and I talked about how thin this wide receiver group is. After that, Mike Thomas, Stanley Morgan Jr., who I like both of those guys. I'm a big Stanley Morgan Jr. fan. I've already talked about that on the pod. Both of those guys, special teams guys. Again, Stanley Morgan comes in. He does exactly what the coaches ask him to do. He blocks well. He is definitely a team guy. I love Stanley Morgan Jr. Again, Mike Thomas, same thing, comes in, gets a catch here and there, gives us some important downs. Not sure about who our number 4 is. I also like Trent Taylor. Again, I know he had a big 2-point conversion play. We're all going to remember that play. But what people probably forget is that our punt return game was not very good with Darius Phillips back there. Again, we talked about it last week, how we lost the 49er game because of our punt return team. Trent Taylor came in and did an outstanding job as a punt returner. And again, as a coach, my rule is I don't care if we get a yard on a return, catch the football, especially when you have an offense that is as good as ours. Just give Joe Burrow the ball back, right? Don't turn the ball over. And Trent Taylor's done well back there. So, but again, it's a little thin. I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to give our receiver group an A, only because those top 3 guys to me are the best tandem in the NFL.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give it a B plus. All right. Controversy here. The top 3, I agree with you. Listen, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, I'll take them over anybody in the league. Listen, the stats say it. Chase was 1,500 yards, 1,400 yards. Higgins had over 1,000. Boyd was close behind. The drop off after that, to me, is alarming. And I'm not trying to knock those guys. Stanley Morgan is one of the top special teams player in the NFL. I'm glad he's on our team. He signed a 2-year contract. He's a special teams leader. We need him on the team. Taylor, okay, great. He was solid, returning punts for us. I guess you could say he didn't drop the ball compared to Phillips, so that made it solid. I don't think he's electrifying back there.
Oh, no.
Listen, Mike Thomas, he gave us some snaps. I don't think our wide receiver 4 is currently on the roster. I think he's currently an unsigned free agent, or he's going to be a late August cut. And I think wide receiver 4 is currently on somebody else's roster. The drop-off is pretty alarming after the first 3. And that's really one of my concerns there. If one of those guys gets nicked up, it's going to be a significant drop-off, and we need our weapons. And that's another reason we talked about running back earlier. Chris Evans.
Yes.
Listen, that guy has unbelievable hands. He can come out and play in the slot. He could sort of be a bigger version of Rex Burkhead.
I love it.
I'm excited.
You and I were both big Rex Burkhead
Oh,
fans.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
that guy. Remember Mon against the Colts in 2014, right? 2014 playoff
Yeah,
game.
when
Rex
everybody was hurt.
Burkhead, when everybody was hurt, Rex Burkhead was one of our starting receivers. That's how thin that receiver group was. All right, here we
Yeah,
go.
that was okay.
So B plus, right? B plus
Yeah.
for your receivers. All right, here we go. Tight ends, right? A position the Bengals, man, we just struggle, right? We just can never. It seems we can never get it right. You and I both love CJ Uzama. He's a great leader and all that. I mean, again, his production wasn't elite. Of course, it didn't need to be. But you and I both were big CJ fans. I think we've upgraded, and that's nothing against CJ. I love CJ. I wanted CJ back, but Hayden Hurst to me is maybe wide receiver number 4. We're talking about a wide receiver number 4. I think Hayden Hurst is that guy, and I think that's the reason why the Bengals went out and got a guy like Hayden Hurst. You got Drew Sample, who again, I think he's one of the best inline blockers on the team. He's not going to go out and get you 500 or 600 yards receiving in a year, but blocking wise, he was very important this year, especially with as bad as our offensive line played at times. Drew Sample didn't play that bad. I know he's a second round pick, and you know you've always wanted more from Drew Sample, but I think he's solid. I think he's solid. Mitchell Wilcox, the guy you like, and then Thaddeus Moss. We'll see what the Thaddeus Moss experiment looks like this year. Again, Joe Burrow's best friend. We'll see if he ends up being a guy that can maybe make this roster. I give the tight ends a C plus. To me,
Fair.
I'm a big Hayden Hurst fan. I'm excited he's a Bengal. But again, I don't know. I need to see the pieces come together in that tight end room.
Gotcha. I got a C plus for him also. Hayden Hurst to me is an upgrade over CJ, and I love CJ. I can see Hayden Hurst playing really well and maybe getting a bigger contract to stay with the Bengals longer. Drew Sample is like having an extra offensive lineman. Yeah, second round pick, you'd like him to get 20, 30, 40 catches a year. I just don't think he's that kind of guy.
No.
Great blocker. And you are right, Jake. He played a key part last year in that run game. Mitchell Wilcox, I do like him. I think he's gotten better each year. Pretty athletic guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks and does pretty well for us. Like I said with the wide receivers, I wouldn't be surprised if tight end 3 is currently on some other roster. He could be a late August cut by a team, and I could see the Bengals, combing the waiver wires and maybe picking up a tight end. I wouldn't surprise me if that happened. But I give it a solid C plus. Okay. Hayden Hurst, I expect big year from him.
Okay. All right. So let's move on here. Here we go. Quickly, the offensive line again. Last year was a mess at times. Again, I don't want to badmouth those guys. They listen. We got to the Super Bowl, right? So there were times when they played really well. You mentioned last week against the Steelers. I think those were their 2 best games as well. I'll agree with you 100%. But let's look at that starting group now. We got obviously Jonah Williams back, and just re-upped. We just re-upped his 5th year, right? The 5th year on his rookie contract. Alex Kappa, who you and I are both excited about. Lel Collins, Ted Karras, and then maybe Jackson Carman, maybe Volson. That's looking like probably our starting 5 right now. And then we got the guys that played a lot last year. Prince, Adeniji, Hill, who's a guy that you really like, Deontay Smith, and as I mentioned before, the only offensive guy that we drafted this year in Cordell Volson. I give our O-line a B plus. And to me last year, I think, I'll be honest, if I was grading last year's, even after the Super Bowl, I would probably give it a C minus, maybe even a D. So a B plus is a huge upgrade. I mean, you're talking about three guys coming in who are Pro Bowl caliber guys. You're talking about maybe one of the best right tackles in the NFL. I'm very excited about this offensive line group. Mon, one crazy stat that I want to throw at you is that 4 out of the 5 starters, I read this week, 4 out of the 5 starters on our offensive line that started week 1 are not even on an NFL roster, man.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's
crazy. That shows you how good Joe Burrow and some of those other guys are on offense, where one guy from week 1 starting on our offensive line is on an NFL roster. That to me is crazy. So I give it a B+.
Okay, I gave it a B. Collins, Williams, Karras, Kappa, and I have Jackson Carman starting right now at left guard. The big 3 that we signed are big improvements. I'm just worried about chemistry because this offensive line has to play together to get to know each other. Kappa, Karras, Collins, major upgrades, and I expect the offense to really improve dramatically with them. Bengals usually keep 10 offensive linemen. Right now, I mean, those are the 5 I have starting. Obviously, Smith is going to be there and Prince, swing tackles. I do like Hill. I think Hill has a future. You have Volson that could vie for that left guard spot. You got the 2 practice squad guys that stick out, Ben Brown, I think from Ole Miss, and the kid from Georgia Tech, Cochran, really athletic. Again, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if late August final roster cuts for other teams, our 9th or 10th offensive lineman could be on another roster right now. But I like where our offensive line is going. It's trending up. Those 3 guys are going to help tremendously. And listen, I know the guys struggled last year. Adeniji, I know Prince. I know but they did get 9, 10 starts, and that's going to help them develop. And hopefully, you know what, a few months, the off season, getting stronger, getting healthier, it's going to make them better football players, and it's going to make our team better also. So yeah, the offensive line is going to be much improved, and that's going to be the key. If they could give Burrow, let's say instead of 55 sacks during the regular season, we get 25 or 30. That means more wins for us.
Unreal. It's unreal to think about how good potentially this team is going to be offensively with that new offensive line. I mean, we're returning everyone from that Super Bowl run that is somebody that you would say is a high caliber talent player and really upgraded at the positions that are no longer there, right? So again, I agree with you, a ton of potential on offense. I'm excited to see how this all comes together. Again, imagine Joe Burrow with a full offseason with a top 10 offensive line, man. Oh my goodness. Like you said, not only watch out ASC, watch out NFL. Watch out NFL. All right, guys, that is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. Real quick, guys, make sure you comment on this podcast. Let us know what your grades are for each offensive position. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Also, make sure you check us out on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. Make sure you download us on those 3. And also follow us on Twitter at Bengals _Pulse. That's PULSE 9. And we just started an Instagram as well. So you can follow us on Instagram. And our Instagram is Bengals _Pulse 9. So the same as Twitter, just not the @ All right. Again, guys, once again, thank you for tuning in to the Bengals Pulse. He is Maan. I am Jake. Really quick, listeners, make sure you tune in next week. Maan, I am so excited. Next week,
Me too.
We have our first guest on the Bengals Pulse. Bengal fans, you are not going to want to miss this. He is just an incredible guy. If you've been a Bengal fan for the last 20 or 30 years, you are going to want to check this out.
He is dialed in. He is dialed
into the Bengals. It's going to be a great show. Once again, guys, thank you very much. Check us out next week. Like we said, Hoo Day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.